Welcome to The Truth Will Not Be Silenced, the show that allows people to be seen, to be heard, and to be human. I'm your host, Melissa Woodfork White. In today's episode, we will talk about mastering real estate investing with LeVar Love. Sharing our stories allows us to encourage, inspire, motivate, uplift, and help people. There will be a special surprise at the end of the show. Be sure to listen all the way through for the details. Our special guest today is LeVar Love. He is a results-oriented leader with over 15 years of real estate experience, including residential redevelopment, commercial new construction, and operates facilities management. He has a successful record in business development in the competitive real estate industry and has started and grown several small businesses over the last 13 years. LeVar holds an MBA with a concentration in finance from Belmont University and a degree in business administration from Tennessee State University, HBCU. He is a licensed realtor in the state of Illinois, is certified on short sales, foreclosures, vacant and abandoned properties, is trained in asset management, and certified in nonprofit and project management. Woo, that's a mouthful. LeVar's commitment to residential community development on the west and south sides of Chicago through various outlets of apprenticeship and training programs have been the focus of growth for Rosie Investment. He also guides new and upcoming entrepreneurs in the real estate investment business by sharing his personal journey over the last 2 decades through coaching and consulting. LeVar is going to share with us about mastering real estate investing. Hi, LeVar. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Melissa, thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. We're going to jump right into the first question. How did you get involved in real estate and why? Tell us your story.
Sure. It goes back a few decades now, but it really happened when I was in undergrad at Tennessee State University. So there were two things happening to me at the time. I had the opportunity to be in a class with the professor's name was Dr. Pennington, and it was an appraisal class because I was getting my bachelor's in business, but I had a concentration in real estate and urban development at Tennessee State University at the time. And this appraisal class, it changed my life. Dr. Pennington changed my life. So I grew up on the west side of Chicago, didn't have much, a family. We had enough. It was a great family. I was one of those kids. I didn't know how poor we were.
Right.
So, but we found a way. I ended up getting a football scholarship to Tennessee State. And while there, when I met Dr. Pennington and his appraisal class, it really changed my life. Because at the same time I was in his class or kind of in that time frame when I was meeting him, registering and all of that, my family was going through a situation where our 2-flat was kind of run down. My grandmother did not have the money to fix it up, kind of things, things like that, things that happen in that urban area. And I was in Dr. Pennington's class and I was doing a project where he asked us to identify 500 things that we want in life. And he said it didn't matter how much it cost, what it was, and he just wanted us to go through it, the exercise. And this was an exercise that extended weeks. And what I realized at that time, I didn't even want 500 things in life. So it challenged me in a way and it forced me to be, creative and think through. A kid coming from the west side of Chicago, like my aspirations at that point was I wanted to buy a new pair of Jordans every time I got paid. It was very simple and not very business minded.
Right.
But when I had the situation with my family's house, I got a chance to kind of sit down with Dr. Pennington and just ask him some questions. It was an appraisal class. He gave me some advice on the house as well as my list. Because what I realized, I was very short-sighted at the time. I did not understand how real estate could change my life, how understanding and creating equity and generational wealth would not just change my life, but my family's life.
Yes.
So I ended up at the time going back to my family, teaching my grandmother how to refinance the house so we could pull money out, get the repairs done, and actually have kind of a line of credit if she had some cash flow needs and things of that nature. And I'll tell you what, I never got to 500 things on that list. I'm gonna be honest with
I,
you, but some of the things on that list,
mhm.
it made me realize I wanted to buy my first house. I also wanted to help my mother buy her first house, and all of those things came to fruition. And that was the beginning of my real estate journey.
That is amazing because I was stunned. He's an excellent educator, professor, teacher. 500
Yeah,
things, 500
yeah,
things. You had
yeah.
me at 500 things. And so that's why when I was learning about your story as you were sharing it, I was like, is he going to get to those 500 things? And you were like, didn't even get to those 500
I
things.
didn't get to it. I didn't get to it, but where I got to was
Mhm.
I knew I had a passion for real estate.
Yes.
I mean, think about this. A kid in college who had never really seen any money, when I helped my grandmother refinance that house, we saw a $10,000 check. I was like, what? It
Right.
was unbelievable. It really changed my life. So it was that nugget, and it wasn't like he spent a whole bunch of time with me. You know how like when you're in college, you go to
Yeah.
the professor's hours, right? They have
Hmm.
hours.
Yes.
So I went there like a couple of times for an hour here, an hour there. But the fact that he took the time to be in the moment with me, to try to put himself in my shoes, understand where I was at, and give me the best advice for me and my family, like to this day, I've still sat down with my kids when they're about to graduate high school
Hmm.
and say, "Hey, I want you to create this list for me." And it is the start of the journey and having the conversation about, so how are you going to accomplish this? How are you going to get these things? Let's talk about it, right?
Hmm.
And making sure that some of those things are about giving back to the community because my kids are a little spoiled. They're a little blessed.
Of
So
course.
making sure that they, kind of build that bridge for those that are coming behind them. So
That is, once again, that is amazing because I know people like you who didn't know that they were poor, didn't have when they were growing up because of how the love and the caring, everything within your house, your parent your parents did not let you know what they did not have, but focused on more what you have. That's what I heard when you shared that nugget because there are families that they know that they don't have. They know when the lights get turned off. They know when there's no food in the refrigerator. And for you to share that, that is very enlightening. And it also helps us to see the other side of when someone shares their story and growing up. In addition to that, you did something that most college students do not do because I graduated from Howard University in Washington, D.C. with
oh,
my
okay.
bachelor's in business. And
Yeah.
so, with that, I went the management and finance side. So, with
Yeah.
that being said, to here, I want to know what year was that? What year were you in college when you did that? Because that's unheard of.
Yeah, so that was 99. That was 99. So yep, that was
Freshman,
99.
sophomore, junior, senior. What year?
What's that? So I would my plan extended. I didn't get done in 4 years. It took me
Okay.
six. I'm gonna put it out there, right?
Okay.
So but that was 99, and I was kind of between, and I think I was, what do they call it? So when you're in 1 year, but you kind of been there long, but I was a junior. So
Okay.
my
Well, you
classification was a
giving me an
junior at the time.
idea. You giving the audience an
Yeah,
idea because
right.
I immediately thought freshman. But then I
No,
thought
no, I
about
was not a
what we
freshman.
did during our freshman. They were all introductory, getting,
Yeah,
acclimated in the whole nine. So then I was
yeah,
like, well, what year was that? That could have been junior or senior year. So that's the reason why I was
yeah,
asking you. You've done something amazing, once again, that most college students in business do not do. And so I
yeah,
want to commend you for that because that just helped me. That just blessed my soul because I was like, wow, you went in there with not knowing that you had a plan, but you had a plan. And when you figured
yeah,
out when you got into that course, what that plan was, you were able to execute that plan immediately. You didn't wait till you graduated. And I want the audience to know you didn't wait till you graduated. As soon as you got the
yeah,
knowledge and the know how
yeah.
and the support behind the knowledge and the know how, you were able to execute that. That is amazing. Amazing. Before we jump into the next question, I'm still on the first one because you really got me with your story. So I'm going to have to
Okay,
detour for just a moment. And so, with
no
that being
problem.
said, What happened after that? After you were
So,
able to refinance your grandmother's house, this is all before
mhm.
graduating. After you were able to refinance your grandma's house, you saw money that you have never seen before, and you were
Yep.
able to get those repairs done. How did that change the trajectory of your grandmother's life and your life leading to graduation?
Oh man. So it you about to make me get emotional. Okay. So for my grandmother, so for the rest of the time, she's passed now, but for the rest of the time she was living, she didn't want for anything. It was so funny because my grandfather had already passed
Mm-hmm.
and he just, he took care of her, right? They had a traditional marriage and things like that. So it was like after that moment, I kind of became like the guy to talk to in the family. If that, because I have
Yes,
uncles
we
too,
know
but
who
they
that
just didn't
is.
understand
Yes.
real estate, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it was one of those situations where, it's funny. If something was wrong with a car, she called me. If something was wrong with, anything, she called me because she was like, my baby, no,
Yeah.
he pulled it out. So our relationship was just it changed in a sense of the way she saw me was just I could have never imagined repaying her back for everything that she did in my life while she was here in that way in her last few years. But she didn't want for anything after that, right?
That,
It's like I made sure we were able to take care of her and she was good to go. Kept her car clean. How the
yes,
old
yes.
old timers are. So
That,
and then for me, I didn't look back. I
mm-hmm.
did not look back. Within 12 months, I had an internship at Home Depot
There we
because that was
go.
back when they were on their do-it-yourself kick. I was like, I got
Yes,
to learn how to do
yes,
all this stuff. So in
yes.
those early days, I was
Mm-hmm.
working in that first house we bought, which I still own today. So in the next 18 to 24 months, I bought two properties
All before
because I
graduation, right?
yeah, before graduation. Yes,
That's what I'm
before
talking
graduation.
about.
Yeah. So when I have understanding,
Mhm.
I can be a monster at times.
That,
So that's what happened.
Lamar, you have a very unique and blessed story because most people do not accomplish that before graduation. I am just in so awe right now, and I'm not going to get off track, so we're going to go into the next
Yeah.
question. But I am just so amazed right now. And by the way, I am from the northwest suburbs of Chicago, out by Schaumburg, Hanover Park. That's where I grew up. That's where I'm from. And so most people that don't know the northwest suburbs, I just say Chicago. But for those that are
Okay.
from Chicago, you know the burbs. So I'm from the
That's right.
northwest. And
That's
so with
right.
that being
Exactly.
said, let's jump into this next question. How can a person master investing in real estate with zero money? Teach
With
us.
zero money. Okay. So perfect. I actually just had this conversation earlier this week. So one of my mentors brought someone to me who isn't in their corporate career, but well educated, but they don't have a lot of money, right? And was like, "Hey, LeVar, work with them." They literally walked him up to me, said, put their hand in my hand and said, "LeVar, work with them. You're the one." And this mentor, they mean the world to me. If they say it, I'm doing
Yeah.
it. So I met with the individual and we sat down. And what I talked to him was the same way people talked to me in the early days.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have money, you have to have time
Mm-hmm.
because that's the other valuable asset, right? It's time. Because here's the reality of it. An investor like me, we're doing 3, 4 projects at a time,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we have to manage those projects. We have to manage subcontractors, things of that nature. And at the same time, juggle the ball of acquisition and disposition. Those three things require time, not money,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Someone out finding the deals, that acquisition piece, the management of the construction, right? Like, hey, can you call this subcontractor? Can you put in my literal conversation was, hey, we typically put in either a residential construction foreman for 12 to 14 weeks or a project manager for 12 to 14 weeks because we do major rehabs with the city of Chicago. So there are $250,000 rehab construction budgets. So we put that in there and it's like, hey, well, if we don't have to spend this for that person putting in this, 10, 15 hours a week managing that project, well, guess what? then that saves us money, and that's how you're contributing time to the project, which now brings a better return to the project, which now you're adding value to the project. So there's there. And then on the other side, it's like, hey, disposition. We have to sell it. We have to get rid of it. Do you have a network? Can you reach out to home buyer education courses, see if they have somebody to buy the property, looking for a property in that area? So to me, there are three ways that you can bring time to a project for an experienced investor. You
Mm-hmm.
don't have to bring a penny. We've already bought the properties. We got the permits. We have the financing for the project. But we need somebody that can add value through time.
And so, you know what? You just said it. I was so interested in this question when I had came up with it because I was like, when I started in real estate, we saved money and we used our money to start in
Yeah.
real estate. So I was interested in how can you do it with zero money? And you just answered the question, time. You just have to have
Yep.
time. You got to put in time. And time is very valuable. Time is priceless. Time is something that you cannot waste. Time is something that you cannot get back. It's priceless. And so that right there to all of our audience listening and watching it, you want to know how you to invest, you got to be willing to put in the time, to put in the time. So with that being said, I
Okay.
want to piggyback on that question.
Mhm.
Now, you do direct sales. When I say direct sales, I mean like buy a house, rehab a house, resell a house. You do all of those things. Am I right, LeVar?
Yes.
So I'm going
Yes.
to ask you a question,
Okay.
and I'm pretty sure you know it because you're an investor.
Mhm.
So, what do you think about the real estate portfolio, the REIT?
The Ritz.
Yes, the REITs.
So you're talking about like Blackstone and things like that?
Yes, where you have a portfolio of properties, which
Yeah.
is another way to invest in real estate. Can
Oh,
you touch
so
on that for a moment?
oh yeah, definitely. Because here's the reality of it. So I have a portfolio of single family homes.
Hmm.
That's the bulk of my portfolio.
Hmm.
I value that passive income, or I say passive, but I value that the income, that cash flow coming from those properties, they're just as important as the houses that I sell because I'm not a flipper anymore. So for your audience, what I am is I am a community developer.
Okay.
And the reason that there's a distinction is because I work with the city. So there are targeted areas I go in to help support affordable housing. So now, am I flipping? Is it the process of flipping? Yes. But there's an overarching theme of how we give back to the community and
Mhm.
how we create affordable housing and things of that nature. But here's the reality of it. I would have never been able to jump into that arena if I did not have this portfolio of rental properties. Okay?
Mhm.
Because here's what happened, and I'm being straight up. What made me such a kind of like the few CDFIs, and if you guys don't know that, it's a certified type of lender that works in specific communities and things like that on affordable housing and other things. What they saw was, hey, this individual has the capacity to do multi-unit or high capacity development in a residential space and he already has cash flow and reserves. And that reserves was simply the equity in this
Yes.
portfolio I had.
Yes.
And just gonna be honest with you, when they look at your bank statements for the last couple of months and they see all of these rents coming in, they
Mhm.
didn't have to look at my personal income.
There
I
you
have a
go.
portfolio, and it's not a huge portfolio. I'm not gonna front
Oh,
like it's
come on.
huge. I'm not
Four
Blackstone.
properties. That's a lot.
What's
Don't
that?
try to downplay that. And then when
So,
you're talking
but
about equity, don't try to downplay that.
Well, no, equity is important. Equity is very important because
Hey.
so I'm going to throw a term out there that I wish I would have known back in '99 when I was
Mhm.
an undergrad. It is personal financial statement, or if you have your LLC and your
That's what
business
I do.
already,
Yes.
okay, understanding your balance sheet, right? Because if I could, I don't want to detour too much
So
because
you're not
what
detouring
happened.
because I asked the question. So go for it.
Okay, all right. Because what happened to me early on, remember I told you I took off like a rocket. I was buying, picking up properties and buying them. Well, I got to six properties, and but the six properties were on my personal name.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, lenders wouldn't lend to me anymore.
Right.
And I didn't understand why, because they were all cash flowing. I'm at the 1.25, and and that's kind of for your debt
Yeah.
ratio
Mm-hmm.
on the cup, your debt coverage. So and I didn't understand why they wouldn't lend to me. And it took another mentor to sit down and break it down to me like, hey, let me tell you how much of a risk you are right now
There you
because of the
go.
size of your portfolio. And like a lot of these things they lent to me early on just simply because of the cash flow I had from the little job I had, and then after that the cash flow that was coming from the properties. But you don't have an entity, and you don't have these properties in an entity, and you haven't built business credit with this entity and things of that nature. So after years of correcting all of that,
Mm-hmm.
I then had a portfolio that was structured correctly that I could then go to the bank or the lenders and say, hey, this is how much this business makes.
Mm-hmm.
And based on this business, I need this, line of credit to purchase, do
Exactly.
acquisitions and things of that nature. So that is some nuggets, just some nuggets that I wish I would have known early on in the game.
But you know what? It's never too late. Because even though you
Oh,
were making all that money from what you did know, you grew from that situation and you end up making a whole lot more money. I heard exactly what you were saying. And so I'm just going to share this with you is that we didn't want to buy multiple properties because we have to
hmm.
manage multiple properties or you have to pay someone to manage those multiple
That's right.
properties. And so
Yeah.
we did the Ritz. And that
Okay.
rent is passive income. So when you first had said it, that is
Yeah.
passive income. And so I'm not a financial advisor anymore. I
Yeah.
used to work for one of the Fortune 500 Wall Street financial corporations. So now I'm a
Hmm.
financial educator. And so with that
Gotcha.
being said, I educate people on the difference and then whatever it is
Hmm.
they're able to do. But before they do it, I set them up with that LLC.
Yeah. That is awesome. That is
And
that is
so
awesome.
we
And
have that. We have the RIT, the REIT,
okay.
however you guys call it. I don't come from real
Yeah.
estate, but I come
Okay.
from finance. And
Yeah.
so, and
So,
so
and can I tell you something?
yes,
If
yes,
if I was talking to an individual and said, you don't want the hustle and bustle. That's the word. Though that's the language I would use of being a landlord and managing tenants and things like that. A rent is an awesome
yeah,
way to go to still be in, to be a part of real estate, to say you own, that's still ownership, right?
it
So
is.
it's
Yes,
still
it is.
ownership. You're still looking at being a part of that investment and hopefully getting a huge return from it. But it's an amazing way to still be in real estate, to truly get that passive income coming back to you. So I definitely support the Ritz without a doubt. I just had this I had the stomach for the hustle and bustle. That's
I
what I'll
know
say.
because you're at that age where you can do it. But when you get to an age, because we owned a couple houses too, just like you. And
Yeah,
now that we're
yeah,
up in age, we don't have the capacity to do so. We have a RIT now,
yeah.
REIT. And so
That's
I
right.
asked you that question because I wanted our audience, our viewers and our listeners to know that they had options. They had
That's
options.
right.
They have options.
Yeah.
So you just, because a lot of people think real estate, that's buying and selling properties, flipping houses, and so forth. All of what you do, all of what you've shared, especially the development piece and giving back into communities. But I wanted to make sure that our audience knew from an expert that they also had an option of the RIT, the REIT. And so that's great. So LeVar, let me tell you, oh my gosh, I've learned so much from you in this short period of time. But I will tell you this, it has been very valuable, very key, especially your story. That really hit home for me. That really hit home for me because you've done a lot in such a short period of time, but for a long time. And that you've created what you mentioned on earlier, that generational wealth. You know, your kids are a little spoiled, but you're still teaching them those financial literacy
That's right.
tools and
That's right.
strategies and methods so that they can continue on that legacy that you have built. So, with that being said, LeVar, tell
Mhm.
us, how does sharing your story today help others? Share the work that you have done or doing in addition to what we've discussed on today. Tell about any future plans.
Sure. So hopefully, when I'm speaking on a podcast or a panel, I always want to give nuggets. So if you're that aspiring real estate entrepreneur out there, hopefully you're getting a nugget like the personal financial statement if you haven't done one for yourself, that balance sheet, making sure if you got that LLC, making sure that's together. So those immediate nuggets. I used to be sitting in those real estate, courses and classes and just wanting to get something that I could take away and act on today. So if you're that person, hopefully you have that. The next piece is the work that we're doing today as community developers. We are going into neighborhoods and not just we're impacting several things, and that's what makes you a community developer. So it's not just hey we're putting a house on the market, so they're getting a quality housing unit. At the same time, we have an apprenticeship program that brings in individuals from the community that learn the trades, carpenters, electricians, plumbers, things of that nature. Because many of the communities that we work in, it's not the individuals in those communities that are repairing those properties and benefiting from the equity and the after repair value of those properties. So we're trying to make sure that we're doing our part there. And then last but not least, creating generational wealth for that family that buys that property. Because with our partnership with the Neighborhood Rebuild Program and so many incentives inside the city of Chicago, many times the homeowners that are purchasing these properties come in with equity in the property.
Mhm.
So we're looking at it from just several aspects to develop the community that we are working in.
That is amazing. Tell our audience how they can contact you.
Sure. So the easiest way is LeVar Love at rosieinvestment.com. We have several of the projects that we're working on today. It speaks to we actually working with Cook County Land Bank, just purchased a 7,000 square foot facility that's coming online next year to help with training the trades in the south side of Chicago. So we have a lot going on, but you go to that website, you can find me as well as there's a YouTube channel, Rosie Investment Corporation as well, where I talk about some of my projects. There'll be a lot of things on that this year. I'm going to spend a lot more time on the social media channels and
Okay.
things like that because I realize I'm helping in the community, but I want to have as large an impact as I possibly can. So
Awesome. Well, LeVar, thank you so much for joining us today. You've dropped a lot of nuggets. I'm still in awe. I'm still in awe. Thank you so much.
thank you. Thank you.
Next week, we'll continue to discuss and share about real life experiences, both personal and professional, stories that need to be shared, seen, and heard that makes us human. The truth will not be silenced. To be seen, to be heard, and to be human. The surprise. If you like or leave a positive comment about our show, you'll get a shout out. This includes businesses, products, services, organizations, and events. Following the link in the show notes lets Buzzsprout know that we sent you and help support our show. Buzzsprout is the best way to launch a professional podcast. Want to ask a question, be a guest, or subscribe to our podcast, The Truth Will Not Be Silenced? Click on the show link. Thank you so much for joining us.